The first time I drove into Oak Ridge Estates, I felt like I had stepped onto the set of a perfectly scripted suburban dream, the kind where lawns were always trimmed to perfection, driveways remained spotless, and even the mailboxes seemed placed at mathematically precise angles. It was the kind of neighborhood where nothing ever happened. Or at least, that's what they wanted you to think. I had spent years patrolling some of the roughest parts of the city. I knew the feeling of tension hanging in the air, the way the streets whispered trouble before it arrived. But here the silence was different. It wasn't the absence of chaos. It was the presence of control. I first heard about the HOA from my next-door neighbor, a wiry man in his 60s with a forced smile. "Strictest HOA in the county," he said, watching me unload boxes. "They keep things real tidy around here?" I smirked, nodding. Good to know. I wasn't the type to ruffle feathers over neighborhood rules. As long as they didn't try to fine me for breathing too loudly, I'd keep to myself. But then, the letter arrived. No envelope. No return address. Just a single crisp sheet of paper tucked under my front door. "You are in violation of HOA policies. Rectify the issue immediately." That was it. No explanation. No mention of what I'd supposedly done wrong. Just a vague warning. I frowned, scanning the street outside. The houses stood still in the warm evening glow, their porch lights flickering on one by one. A sprinkler hissed somewhere in the distance, but the neighborhood itself felt motionless. Something about it gnawed at me. I had handled my fair share of warnings before. Anonymous tips, cryptic threats scrawled on napkins. But this wasn't aggression. This was calculated. Someone was watching. Someone was waiting. I folded the letter carefully and stepped outside, my gaze sweeping over the quiet street. Nothing seemed out of place. And yet, I knew I wasn't alone. Hey, real quick, if you're enjoying the video so far, make sure to hit that like button, share it with friends, and subscribe for more awesome content. And while you're at it, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. All right, let's keep going. The night was unusually quiet. Even for a neighborhood as eerily perfect as Oak Ridge Estates, something about the silence felt off. I had just finished my usual evening routine, checking the locks, a habit I never shook from my years on the force, when I caught a glimpse of something strange through the window. A black and white patrol car sat idle across the street. No sirens, no lights. Just watching. I frowned. A marked police vehicle in this area wasn't unheard of, but something about it gnawed at me. No calls had gone out on the radio earlier, at least none I was aware of. And in a neighborhood like this, where the biggest crime was an overgrown hedge, a patrol car just sitting there felt wrong. Then the doors opened. 2 officers stepped out, their silhouettes sharp under the streetlights, both in standard-issue uniforms, complete with belts and radios. They moved with authority, but their stride wasn't quite right. Too rigid, too practiced. They were trying too hard. I stayed by the door as they approached. The taller one, mid-40s, clean-shaven, spoke first. "Evening, sir. Mind if we have a word? I didn't open the door all the way. What's this about?" The second officer, younger, square jaw, rested a hand on his belt. "We received a report about HOA violations at this residence." His voice was level, but there was something rehearsed about the way he said it. A police visit for an HOA violation? That wasn't just odd. It was unheard of. HOAs don't have that kind of power. I kept my expression neutral. "That's so. You got a case number?" The 2 men exchanged a quick glance. Too quick. The taller one spoke again. "It's just a courtesy visit. A warning, if you will." That's when I noticed their badges. Something was off. The numbers weren't in the usual format, and the engraving was shallow, as if it had been stamped on instead of properly minted. Fake. I'd seen plenty of counterfeit badges in my time. Con artists, security guards playing cop, and worse, these guys were either deep in some shady HOA scheme or testing the waters for something bigger. I decided to push. "Which department are you out of?" I asked, crossing my arms, a flicker of hesitation. The younger one shifted on his feet. "We're local." Wrong answer. "Real cops don't talk like that." "I see. You mind if I take a closer look at that badge?" I nodded toward the older officer's chest. His hand twitched, just slightly, but I caught it. He knew I was onto him. For a moment the air between us went still. Then, just as quickly as they had arrived, the taller one forced a smile. "No need for that, sir. Just a friendly visit. Consider this your warning." With that, they turned and walked back to their car. I stood there, watching as the patrol car pulled away, its headlights vanishing into the night. My pulse was steady, but my instincts were screaming. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The next morning I woke up with a gnawing sense of unease. Last night's encounter hadn't just been strange, it had been wrong. I knew what real cops looked like, how they talked, how they carried themselves. Those two? They weren't officers. They were something else, and I needed to find out who they were and why they were here. I started with the most obvious step, calling it in. I still had friends in the department, people who could run a quick check without raising too many eyebrows. Within an hour, I got my answer. "There's no record of any patrol unit in your area last night," my old partner Martinez told me, over the phone. "Nothing in the logs, no calls made. If someone came out there, they weren't ours." That confirmed it. Whoever those men were, they weren't cops. But they wanted me to think they were, and that begged the question, who had sent them? I decided to take a different approach. If these fake officers had come before, someone in the neighborhood had to know. I started knocking on doors. Most people didn't want to talk. They gave polite but clipped responses, forcing tight smiles as they assured me everything was fine in Oak Ridge Estates. A couple of them even closed the door before I finished my sentence. They were scared, but one person finally cracked. Mrs. Holloway. She was in her 70s, her eyes sharp despite her frail frame. She let me inside, locking the door behind us, as if someone might be watching. "This has happened before," she said quietly, "and not just once." I leaned forward. "Tell me everything." She sighed, wringing her hands. "It started with small things. People getting warnings about HOA violations they never committed, random fines. Then, when some of them refused to pay, those officers started showing up." My jaw tightened. "And what happened to those people?" She hesitated. Then, in a hushed tone, she said, "Most of them moved away." I felt a slow chill creep down my spine. This wasn't just intimidation. This was a pattern that left me with only one logical suspect, the HOA. If this scam had been going on for months, maybe even years, someone in the association had to be pulling the strings. They had the power, the access, and the authority to make life miserable for homeowners who didn't comply. The question was, why? What were they really after? I had a feeling I was about to find out, and I wasn't sure I was going to like the answer. I don't like being played. Whoever those fake cops were, they thought they could intimidate me into submission, like they had done to others before me. But they had made one crucial mistake. They picked the wrong guy. I wasn't just going to expose them. I was going to make sure they never did this again. I spent the next day installing CCTV cameras around my property. Most people put them up high, on rooftops, above garages. But I placed mine low, hidden in planters and along the fence line. I wanted angles. I wanted details. Then I baited them. I sent an anonymous complaint to the HOA, a simple email claiming that my neighbor had violated HOA regulations. Nothing too serious, just enough to get a reaction. If these fake officers were connected to the HOA, they wouldn't be able to resist checking it out. Now I just had to wait. It didn't take long. 2 nights later, at exactly 11:43 p.m., headlights cut through the darkness. The same black and white. Patrol car pulled up across the street. Game on. I stayed inside, watching the monitors as the 2 officers stepped out. Same guys. Same stiff movements. Same cheap badges. But this time they weren't here to warn me. They were scanning the house, checking for cameras, looking for something. I grabbed my badge, clipped it inside my jacket, and stepped outside. "Evening, officers." I kept my tone casual but my stance firm. They turned, surprised. The older one, the supposed leader, smiled thinly. "Didn't expect you to be up?" I shrugged. "I'm a light sleeper." The younger one shifted. He looked uneasy, like he could feel something was off. "Good." The older one cleared his throat. "We received another HOA complaint about your property. I tilted my head. That's so? He nodded. I'm afraid we'll have to issue an official warning. I took a slow step forward. Official warning, I repeated. Then I assume you filed the proper paperwork with the department. A flicker of hesitation. It's all documented. I smiled. Great, because I checked with the department. They don't have any record of you. The younger one stiffened. The older one's expression barely changed, but I saw the shift in his posture. He knew he was caught. I pulled my real police badge from my jacket and flipped it open. Here's the thing, I said, my voice even. I am a cop. And you two, you're under arrest. For a split second, no one moved. Then, chaos. The younger officer, the weak link, panicked. He bolted, turning so fast he nearly tripped over his own feet. The older one snarled, "Damn it, kid, I didn't waste time." I lunged, grabbing the older fake cop's wrist before he could reach for whatever was on his belt. With a sharp twist, I had him face down on the pavement before he could react. "Don't move," I warned, pinning him down. Meanwhile, the younger one was running full speed down the street. But I wasn't worried, because my CCTV cameras had captured everything. And now, I had proof. This wasn't just two guys playing dress-up. This was a full-blown operation, and I was about to bring it all crashing down. By the time I had the older fake cop restrained and back up en route, my mind was already racing ahead. This wasn't just some petty scam. It was organized, and someone in the HOA was pulling the strings. The fake cops hadn't acted alone. They had resources, access to resident complaints, and enough confidence to believe no one would question their authority. That meant they were getting inside information from someone high up. After securing my suspect and handing him off to the real police, I dug deeper. First, I cross-checked every previous HOA fine and violation issued over the past few years. The pattern was impossible to ignore. New homeowners were hit with sudden, vague fines. If they challenged them, they'd receive warnings from law enforcement. If they still refused to pay, the harassment escalated. Fake cops, threats, and, eventually, they'd move out. It was a business model, and I finally had a name: Thomas Grayson. Grayson wasn't just on the HOA board, he practically ran it. He had been president for 8 years, unopposed. He controlled which complaints were escalated and personally signed off on fines that never officially existed. He was behind everything, and I knew exactly how to bring him down. The next morning I paid Grayson a visit. His house was just like the man himself, too perfect. Freshly painted, manicured lawn, luxury cars parked neatly in the driveway. The kind of place built on other people's misery. He opened the door with a politician's smile. "Officer, to what do I owe the pleasure?" I held up a folder, the kind only cops carried. His smile twitched. "Let's talk inside." His jaw clenched, but he stepped aside. "Of course." I walked in, taking my time. The place reeked of money. Dirty money. I turned to face him, flipping open the folder. Inside, screenshots of fake fines, HOA violation logs, and best of all, CCTV footage of his hired fake cops. His face barely changed, but I caught it, that flicker of fear. "You've been running a nice little operation," I said. "Intimidating homeowners, scaring them into paying fees that don't exist. And when they push back, you send in your guys." Grayson exhaled, rubbing his jaw. "You don't have proof of anything." I smiled. "I have everything." Silence. Then he laughed. Low, calculated. "Do you really think the county cares?" I leaned in. "I don't need the county. I just need one homeowner to press charges. And trust me, after what you pulled, they will." His eyes darkened. He knew I was right. By nightfall, the arrests began. The fake cops, charged with impersonating officers and harassment. Grayson? Fraud, extortion, conspiracy. Residents started coming forward, stories of threats, vandalism, even forced evictions. The HOA wasn't a homeowners association. It was a racket. But now, it was over. I wasn't taking any chances. By now, I had enough evidence to bury Thomas Grayson and his operation. But taking down a man like him wasn't about paperwork. It was about catching him in the act. So we set a trap. I met with my old unit, guys I trusted. They knew the case was airtight, but we needed one final nail in the coffin. I had already found Grayson's weakness, his greed. We baited him with the one thing he couldn't resist: power. Using a fake complaint, one designed to look like a problem homeowner refusing to comply, we made it seem like someone was challenging the HOA's authority again. We leaked the information directly to Grayson. If his usual routine was to send his fake cops to intimidate homeowners, he'd do it again. And this time, we'd be waiting. At 9:14 p.m., a black SUV rolled up to the designated house. Through my earpiece, I heard my team whisper, "They're here." Grayson stepped out first, wearing his usual smug confidence. Behind him, the same fake cops. Only this time, their badges wouldn't save them. I watched from a darkened car across the street. My hands curled into fists. Grayson walked up to the door, knocked twice, and the second it cracked open, "Police! Hands in the air!" Floodlights exploded onto the scene. Marked patrol cars screeched in from both ends of the street. Officers in full gear swarmed the SUV, the house, the entire block. The fake cops barely had time to react before they were tackled to the ground. Grayson, for the first time, he looked afraid. I stepped forward, badge out. His eyes locked onto mine. "This is harassment," he spat, his bravado slipping. "No," I said. "This is justice." Two officers grabbed him, twisting his arms behind his back. I leaned in as they cuffed him. "You thought you owned this neighborhood, that people would stay scared forever." His jaw clenched. "But you forgot something," I continued. "Real cops don't scare so easily." As the arrests piled up, more homeowners started coming forward. It turned out Grayson had been running his racket for years. The fake cops were just the enforcers. The real power? That ran deeper. Bank statements, hidden accounts, even connections to local officials. This wasn't just an HOA scam. This was a criminal empire. And something told me Grayson wasn't the only one running it. As he was shoved into the back of a patrol car, he turned to me, his lips curling into a smirk. "You think this is over?" A slow chill crept up my spine, because deep down, I knew. It wasn't. Thomas Grayson was led out of Oak Ridge Estates in handcuffs, his smug confidence replaced by a hollow stare. The once powerful HOA president, the man who had built his little empire on fear and intimidation, was now just another criminal getting booked at the county jail. But this wasn't just about him. It was about everyone he had hurt. Once word got out that Grayson and his fake cops had been exposed, the floodgates burst open. Homeowners who had been too afraid to speak suddenly found their voices. A single mother who had been threatened into paying thousands in violation fees. An elderly couple whose home was nearly seized over false property infractions. Families who had moved out in the dead of night, fleeing the HOA's relentless harassment. They had all suffered in silence. But now, they had proof. They had justice. With every new testimony, the case against Grayson grew stronger. It didn't take long for prosecutors to tear through his operation. Financial records showed years of fraudulent fines, illegal kickbacks, and hush money. The fake cops were just the muscle. The real scam was the money. And the worst part? Grayson hadn't been acting alone. Other HOA board members, local contractors, even a county official had played a role. They all profited from the scam. Until now. One by one, they fell. I watched as the once perfect neighborhood tried to put itself back together. Street by street, the grip of fear loosened. Homeowners held their heads higher. New leadership was elected, but the truth lingered like a shadow. I had spent years patrolling rough neighborhoods, places where danger wore its face openly. But here, in this manicured, picture-perfect suburb, the danger had been hidden behind smiles, polite conversations, and a well-maintained facade. The real lesson? Evil doesn't always come with a warning. Sometimes it looks like a friendly neighbor. As I locked up my house that night, a sense of unease still lingered. Grayson was in custody. The operation was over. The neighborhood was safe again. But before I went to bed, I found something that made my stomach twist. A small, unmarked envelope slipped under my door. No return address. No message. Just one thing inside. A copy of my police badge, and underneath it, scrawled in shaky ink, "This isn't over." The neighborhood felt different now. For the first time since I moved into Oak Ridge Estates, There was no underlying tension in the air. No anxious glances, no whispered warnings. People smiled for real. They waved when they saw me, not out of forced politeness, but with genuine relief. The HOA had been gutted. The corrupt board members were gone, replaced by new leadership, honest people who wanted to make things right. The fines stopped. The harassment ended, and the remaining residents finally felt safe in their own homes. And me? I had come here looking for peace, a quiet place away from the chaos of the city. Instead, I had uncovered a hidden war, fought it, and won. I had earned something I never expected: respect. Neighbors who had once avoided eye contact now stopped to chat. A few even thanked me outright. But just as I started to believe that everything had finally settled, I found the envelope, tucked neatly beneath my front door. No return address, no markings. Inside was a single piece of paper. 4 words: "This isn't over." A slow chill crept down my spine. I stepped outside, scanning the quiet street. The perfect houses bathed in the glow of streetlights. For the first time, I wasn't sure if I was truly alone. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, share it with friends, and subscribe for more awesome content. Don't forget to tap the bell icon to stay updated. And let me know in the comments, where are you watching from? Your support means the world.